All right. Hey, folks. We're going to continue working on the Westmarch-Platoon style campaign for our martial powers playtest. We're just going to do some development here today. Give me a hot second here for me to check my signal. I'll go through my intro, and then we'll get to work here for a little bit. Doing a mic check here. 1, 2, 3. Mic check here. 1, 2, 3. Sounds good to me. Okay, cool. So I'm going to boost my presence across the internet here for a moment while I go through my intro. So if you are catching us here in the future, hey future, and you've seen the intro before, you know who I am, you know what I got going on, then be welcome to skip ahead like a minute or two, and then we'll be able to dive into it. But for those that are here with me now that have never been here before, or you're just checking out the channel after we've streamed, hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing game supplements, I illustrate them and publish them online, and I've been focusing my attention on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition for the past 5 years. There are a slew of books that I've published that are on DMsGuild.com. There's links to all of them in the description down below. They all have extensive free previews, so if you click open any of them on the desktop, there's going to be an icon. There's going to be a link underneath the cover illustration. It says full preview. You can click on that, or if you are on a mobile device, there'll be an eye icon on the right-hand side of the screen. Click either one of those. It'll open up a PDF. You can look at all the work that I've done. In particular, it would be worth your time to check out. Let's see, the Color Mana Spell Point Variant Rule Bundle. Now, the Martial Powers book that we're currently developing is going to be included in this bundle, and we're going to be updating all these books here on stream once the new 2024 books come out. We'll update all this tech so that it's current with the 2024 mechanics. We'll also be able to integrate Ravnica, Strixhaven, and Theros campaigns into the core documents. And then if Wizards ever publishes another setting using the Magic the Gathering universe, multiverse, then we'll be able to build additional documentation to express those campaigns as well. The Martial Power system was developed so that all 13 characters could have the same color mana resource to be able to activate or to cast spells or trigger different spell-like effects, or class features like a battle master, like a fighter battle master has a stack of superiority dice that are spent to trigger different effects. The way that we rebuild this here, I'll show you here real quick. Bop, 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 and then we'll get into specifics here with you guys. But just to chew on this thing here for a minute. Martial Powers playtest. I'll show you guys how to get access to this thing in a minute. But just for practical purposes, fighter. If we were to go down to the Battle Master, right? A Battle Master in the Player's Handbook has a few maneuvers that we learn, and then you get some maneuver dice. What we did was we converted all of the Battle Master maneuvers and a shitload of other stuff into a mirrored spellcasting type system. It's not spellcasting, they are called martial powers, akin to what are available in like the 3rd edition Book of Nine Swords, as well as in 4th edition there was a stack of books called Martial Powers, which were things that you could do as actions or whatever for your character to do spell-like or similar maneuver type effects as a martial character, not casting spells, not having spell slots or whatever, but being able just to trigger these effects to have more action economy uses, to have more options, to be less linear as a character. So there's about 200, I think we're at 200, we might be more than 209 right now, but all these different powers, there's 151 of them that require mana, and there's about 60 of them that are like cantrip type effects that don't require mana to use. Mana is like a spell point. In the Dungeon Master's Guide, in the Player's Handbook, there's spell slots, and each slot has a level, and when you spin that slot, you cast a spell of the appropriate level. The Dungeon Master Guide offers in my opinion, an intentionally clumsy system for having spell points instead of spell slots, so that you just have a pool of effectively mana that you can use to cast spells at will. But it's a very clumsy system that's not intuitive at all. So we built a more intuitive system. The spell point variant of the core mechanics introduce the idea of mana, and it's very simple. The level of spell is the amount of points that it takes to cast. So if we were to go into, let's go to Dungeon Masters Guild, and let's put in. Actually, let's lean into what we're actually using here. We have our here, drop down to here. If we were to go to look at the color mana spell point variant rules, we can look at the free previews that we provide for people. As soon as this thing Fajudgity loads, Fajudgity load! Thank you. Let's scroll down to, let's look at the core mechanics book. This is a 75-page document, and so here's that full preview link underneath the cover, and here's 75 pages of goodness. This is about 30 sales away from being a gold medal bestseller. So anyone that's interested in this stuff and wants to help encourage me gaining medal statuses, greatly appreciated. Once I get to a gold medal status in a book, I can actually start doing print on demand on DMsGuild. So if you guys are interested in potentially seeing my stuff in print in the future, then definitely pick up some stuff to help me get to that goal. But this is all available for you as a free preview to look at, so you aren't risking anything. If you don't like it, never mind. But if you think this stuff is cool, stick around. We're building stuff. A full caster would end up having 80 mana over the course of 20 levels and could put up to 10 mana in upcasting any spells at 19th level. A half caster like artificer, paladin, ranger, they have on a long rest they have up to 40 mana per day. And then things like Eldritch Knights and Arcane Tricksters, they get up to 20 mana at 20th level. The Monk also has 1 mana per level, so up to 20 at 20th level. But the Warlock and the Monk regain their mana on a short rest. So by the time you reach 20th level, every time you take a short rest, you'll get another 20 mana back. So using that as our base model, every time you cast a spell, a first level spell is... it costs 1 mana. So let's see. If we go to the revised spell list here, you can see as this pops open, this is a pay what you want. So you can buy it if you want to, or you can just pick these things up because they're all available. Using the using the 5-color magic paradigm, there's 5 colors from Magic the Gathering: white, blue, black, red, green. And here are just some basic aspects of what each color means. There's a lot more to it than this, but these are some just general phrases and ideas that help give you an idea of, like, mechanically, what does each of these colors represent. There's also different damage types that are devoted to each type of color: white, blue, black, red, green. Acid, for example, is a black or a green effect. These are all themed off. These are all pulling from references on Magic the Gathering cards that deal damage or have creatures that can attack. These are the general themes of the damage types in Dungeons and Dragons and how they would translate over into the Magic the Gathering setting. So, like, cold damage would be white, blue, or green. That generally corresponds with cards, winter cards, or different, like, cold effect cards, or creatures that are like yetis and stuff like that. That's generally white, blue, or green type creatures is what you'll end up seeing. So that's how this gets coordinated. Like, radiant is white energy. White is often associated with divinity and protection or divine magic, while, say, necrotic damage, black energy is like entropy, fear, darkness, control, soul magic. So, like, resurrection, if we scroll down, here's a list of all the spells in the player's handbook, and if you buy this bundle, then you'll get all of the spells, all 600 whatever spells that have been published. They're all in here, but this free sample offers you just what's in the player's handbook because, you know, it's a free sample. What do you want? Let's see. Let's scroll down to Resurrection Magic. Actually, 5th level, Raise Dead. Raise Dead. That's white and black magic. White magic is often involved with healing, restoration, and divinity, while black is often associated with soul magic. So white and black would be the two colors that you would be able to cast Raise Dead. It's a 5th level spell. As long as you put 1 point of either white or black into the mana, the other 4 points of mana can be any color that you want. So when you take a long or a short rest, you can take your mana pool and decide which colors you want to be in your pool and how much of each. So whenever you take a rest, you can recalibrate how much mana you have to be able to fuel your spell. If the only thing you have use for white magic for is Raise Dead, then during a normal adventuring day, you don't need to devote any color to white magic, because you won't need it until your guy's already dead and there's not a 1 minute duration. However, if you want to have Revivify on your list because you're afraid of your allies dying during combat, Revivify is also white and black magic because it captures the soul and puts it back in the body via divine power. So white, black, there you go. You're going to want to have, if you want to revivify your allies, you're going to want to have some either white or black magic in your pool. Or alternatively, you can research Revivify to be a different color. So if you like to focus on, say, red and green magic, you could choose to spend time researching Revivify to be, say, a green spell. So when you prepare Revivify, you can have green mana and not have to worry about whether you have white or black. So by spending time to research your spell selection, your preferred spell loop, you can help optimize the colors in your mana pool so you can do more with less color options. So given that, these powers that we have in the Martial Powers book, sticking with that color magic theme, martial characters, they have their pool of mana, and using Ravnica, there's only 2 colors that each each character would have. It'd be there's 10 combinations of the 5 colors. And here's how, for those that aren't familiar with Ravnica, but say have seen the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, here are the color breakdowns in Magic the Gathering based on the guild that you're associated with. I'm a big Boros and Rakdos fan. I'm also a big Azorius Senate and House Dimir fan. Azorius Senate, House Dimir. Azorius has white and blue magic, while Dimir has blue and black magic. So they're both blue guilds, right? But they're different in philosophy because one is white magic, the other one is black magic. Blue is like perfection and gathering information and evolution, progression, moving forward, advancement. While white magic is like we see with divinity, but a lot of its philosophical concepts are like protecting community, sense of gathering, and allies. While black is self-progression, self-importance, a sense of identity, creating boundaries and space for yourself. So diametric opposition here is House Dimir wants to advance causes for themselves, while Azorius wants to advance causes for everyone. And they all have a sinister bend to them, to have that evil, that good and evil aspect. On the good side, if you're working in the positive, Azorius Sin is trying to create rules and means of treating all citizens fairly so that everyone can prosper. The dark side of this is we're going to use rules to suppress and prevent you from doing things because we think it's dangerous for society. They have actual literal thought police that they use telepathy to scan thoughts of people within their realm, and if they don't like what you're thinking, they'll come for you and either change your mind or get rid of it. While Dimir specifically hides their thoughts and their intentions from others to protect themselves, and they seek to create more opportunities for their own house or for them as individuals, using the information that they gather to help further their own personal goals. And these two are diametrically opposed. That white-black axis rotating or leveraging off of the desire to grow and evolve into more. So if you're playing a martial powers character like the Battlemaster, for instance, if you had a Battlemaster that's Azorius Senate, you'd be working with white and blue magic or white and blue mana. So you'd break up your mana pool for Azorius. Hey, how you doing, Renico? You'd break up your mana between there's 5 disciplines of power. So there's white, blue. The 5 disciplines are exploits, which modify die rolls. There's maneuvers, which are like spell-like effects, point click, as well as like say battle masteries, or the battle master maneuvers. Like I'm going to use my bonus action, so you can use a reaction to move. That's an instance of a maneuver. But then so is something like phase, which is you becoming corporeal until the beginning of your next turn. So these are both considered maneuvers, things that you can do that use either an action or a bonus action to execute. Reactions are self-explanatory. It's a reaction. You have general reactions like I fail a saving throw, so I'm going to spend a point of mana to reroll. Or you have opportunity attacks. When somebody attempts to attack an ally, I can take the damage for them and gain resistance to that damage. And that's considered an opportunity attack. So there's some instances inside of the system where you can have multiple opportunity attacks as reactions. So there's a lot of maneuvers that let you do multiple things as reactions during the course of combat. But that's a reactions. And then strikes are like smite spells. They're basically when I hit you, I spend mana to deal extra damage, and there's some sort of a kicker effect. Like flaming strike, I hit you and you catch on fire. You're either going to have to spend an action to put the fire out, the drop and roll, or make a dexterity saving throw for the fire to go out. But you'll be taking damage each round while you're on fire. That's the kicker effect. And then finally, there's sustained powers, which are concentration effects. They're self-buffing, like enchantment auras that you imbue your character with, so they can do more, have more action economy, have alterations, new features, and stuff like that. Just like haste, for instance, is a concentration effect. It gives you an extra attack. It lets you move faster. It gives you a bonus to armor class. There you go. So like that would be an example of a sustained buff effect. So when you're breaking up your mana pool between two colors, sustained powers, generally the default assumption is that a sustained power can use both colors. So an Azorius Battlemaster would be able to spend both blue or white magic to activate and sustain sustained effects that you buff yourself with. And then you can break up, you have 4 other. So you could take exploits and maneuvers and make those white, and make your reactions and your strikes blue. So you're dividing up your pool. If all you want to do is mess with one color, you could learn, say, only reactions and reactions and strikes, and then not use white magic and forego any exploits or maneuvers. Contrarily, if you wanted to make all maneuvers say just blue, you could learn an exploit as white, and then you can learn it again to convert it to blue. So at, say, 3rd level, you have a total of 4 known powers. And if you decide, and every time you gain a level, you can switch what things are aligned to, or are devoted to. So at 3rd level, say you have exploits and maneuvers are white, and then reactions and strikes are blue. You could choose to learn 4 strikes or reactions, or conversely, you could choose to learn 2 exploits and maneuvers and learn them twice so that they're blue instead of white. So you don't have to worry about multiple colors, but you're reducing the things that you can do by specializing in what color it is that you do them with. So your mana doesn't go as far and isn't as flexible as you would think, because you have to specifically massage your mana pool and the powers that you know to work together. And if you run out of mana of a color, you have to wait until you take a short rest to switch colors back over to something that you could use. And when you take a short rest, you could also prepare a different power. You could swap one out. So, hey, there's text going on down here. What's up, Ponetico? First ever D&D character was a paladin who only knew one spell and never actually used the smite mechanic. I think this would be a better way to convey that character. This would be a great way to convey that character, right? Because if you don't use strikes, then you don't have to invest any. You don't have to invest any mana, and you can just dump that into whatever spare. Like if you don't want to have 2 colors, if you want all of your mana to be able to use all the time, you're going to limit what things you're going to do with that mana. So as you gain levels, you have a larger pool. You can exploit things more. There's options in here that allow you to drop the cost of things down to 0 mana. And if you do that, then you don't have to worry about what color it is, because you're not actually spending mana on it. So like you could spend like a ranger, for instance. If you're attacking your marked prey, then you can reduce the cost of any strike powers by 1 mana, which means that you can trigger first rank strikes infinitely as long as you're attacking your marked prey. That basically translates into an extra die of damage. But it's a major key feature. It helps amplify that idea of being like a sniper or a foe hunter. By locking in on your mark, you can do more damage to them and you can trigger effects against them more easily. Meanwhile, if you're attacking something that isn't your mark of prey, that first rank power is going to cost you a point of mana. So you can tailor your ranger's action loop to be focusing on specific targets that you're marking and then attacking, so that you're always triggering strike effects against them. So you wouldn't have to, you could actually, like that Azorius Ranger, if you didn't want any strikes, like if you don't want to pay for any strikes, you could instead just make all of your strikes first rank strikes, and then only use strikes when you're targeting a marked prey, make them blue, keep all your mana white, so you have a ton of exploits and maneuvers that you can use. But whenever you're triggering that strike against your targeted prey, it won't cost any mana. So it doesn't matter that it's blue. You can still describe it as blue magic and have your own narrative, your own Ludo narrative about how that color is expressed when you strike something. But it won't actually cost you any mana because the ranger can reduce the cost. So there's a lot of really fun ways for you to be able to manipulate the system. And at first level, up until 9th level, let's take a look at the master chart again here. Your power die is only a d6 at first level, and it stays d6 until 9th. So a ranger using a bonus action to toggle a character to be their marked prey, and thus being able to do an extra d6 of damage when they hit them, that's not breaking the game. That's actually what a lot of people want Hunter's Mark to do. So that's what we make it do. Having said all that, the Battle Master, all the maneuvers from the Battle Master have been translated into different powers. So if you wanted to play a like an Azorius Battle Master, then all of your Battle Master options are going to be either maneuvers, exploits, or reactions. So you can craft you can craft your character to do exactly what you want. And like fighters, rogues, monks, barbarians, whenever you finish a long rest, you can completely swap out your entire kit. So you're preparing maneuvers for that day. And when you take a short rest, you can swap one of the powers that you know. So you're very dynamic. There's 200 some odd powers here for you to choose one from. So you have the same broad flexibility that, say, a cleric would have. Cleric has access to all the spells on the list. Druid has access to all the spells on their list. When 2024 comes in, we're seeing all the classes being converted to this prepared style. Rangers can swap out their kit every day, and a ranger and a paladin can choose between spells and powers. You can use them both because they use the same mana mechanic, 1 point per level or rank of power. So you're always working on the same scale. First level spell costs the same as a first rank power. So you can have those two things float back and forth. It's just that if you're going to use strikes, don't use paladin smites and the smite spells. The strikes override and replace the different strike effects. So having said all that, if this is the stuff that's interesting to you guys, I would invite anyone here, finally finishing up my loop here, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications in the future when we're live so you can see how this stuff continues to play out. Here is the, let's see. I don't have my Discord up. I have a Discord active. I don't have it linked here, so I'll update this when we finish, but you can join our Discord if you're interested in playtesting this stuff with us. You'd be welcome to. But if you click here into the playtest content here, and you don't have to be a Patreon to access this stuff, but it certainly helps encourage me to keep doing it. So, as you wish. But let's see, playtest content for martial powers. If we click the YouTube stream, we'll be here right now. Hi, guys. But if you click the martial powers link, it'll take you to the same document that we're working inside of right now. This is that it'll be a read-only document, but you can read through all 90 some odd pages to see all the classes are converted, all the subclasses for the classes are converted. We have all the powers we're still locking down the language, but they all work. So you can build any martial character, barbarian, fighter, monk, rogue, as well as paladin, ranger, and we have options for artificer and warlock. All those classes can be played from level 1 to 20 with the playtest content that we have here right now. I've been running it at my home table from level 12 to 20 because I run campaigns from level 1 to 20 in about 250 hours. And we've been spending a lot of time at 12th through 20th level building this out and playing at the high end. And it's a lot of fun. So we want to do a play test to work it at the low end of the game from levels like, say, 3 to 9 or something like that. Just to make sure that at high levels you have a ton of resources and a ton of options, and you can craft things and you can make it easy for yourself. It's an abundant resource. It's fun. But at low levels you don't have as many resources and you don't have as many options. So we want to make sure that it plays out and it's fun at the low levels too. So we're creating this Westmarch campaign where players can switch out, but it won't impact the continuity of the game. And it's a Rubblebelt hex crawl style, so you're just going through the wasteland from point A to point B, and all the adventure happens between those 2 points. And the theme is that you're escorting a caravan of NPCs through the wasteland to get to safety. So you have scouts and you have guards and you have non-combatants. The non-combatants need to be protected. The non-combatants at the caravan are protected by the guards. The guards are inactive characters. And so the active characters during the course of the game are scouts that are going forward ahead of the caravan to resolve any threats that may attack the caravan during a long rest. And for you guys to know what your next path of travel is going to be, we're going to have random, it's going to be a lot of RNG, so we're going to be generating stuff so that there's no continuous plot line, so it doesn't matter who the players are or even what characters the players are depicting. So as we go through the adventure, when we have our new roster of players on board for the week, they can either use characters that they bring to the table themselves, or starting on Monday during our lunch development stream, we're going to start building pre-generated characters, so that there'll be a stack of characters that you can just grab and use as is, so you can just drop in, drop out. And all we're looking to do is just throw mana around, beat up monsters, explore terrain, and just do adventuring stuff to see how fun at the low levels this system is going to feel. And if there's any hiccups on mechanics or how things get expressed or anything hidden that I haven't found at the high end yet, these things will be able to become clear so that we can have a clean document. Once we finish the playtesting, we're probably going to be around the 2024 release of the new content for the new 5e version characters. So we'll be able to just build this into whatever that's got going on. And if you've seen my stream in the mornings or my Eberron creature token production in the evenings, you'll know that once this thing gets done and we have an editor go through and we build out everything, then we'll start doing artwork for the book here on stream. And once the artwork is done, we'll publish it as a PDF on the DMsGuild link down below. So, and then we'll add it to the Color Mana bundle here, so that you'll have one heavy discount, like a 50% off discount bundle for everything. And you'll be able to have all 13 classes using the Color Mana system. So if you want to run a true Strixhaven game, or a true Ravnica campaign, or a true Theros campaign, then all the mechanics that you'll need will be integrated into these books for you to be able to dive into that idea. So that's a very long-winded hello and how you guys doing. I posted on Twitter that I'm active. If you're on Twitter, X, I'm at Phil Kearney. You can follow me there. A big shout out to the Ravnica DMs Reddit community. Privid. The Privid guide came from the moderators that oversee the Ravnica DMsGuild, and that team is really friendly sorts. If you're into Ravnica, check out the Ravnica DMs subreddit, and of course, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get more notifications and see what we got going on in the future. On Monday, we're going to start with a Dimir blue-black themed rogue. That's what we're going to start with. But today, we're going to finish out today's session. It's 10 o'clock now. I've got about an hour or so for me to continue diving through. We're going to continue developing the hex crawl for the Rubblebelt Platoon campaign. I'm going to catch up on the text over here on the side and then dive into it. But the DM tools, the Ravnica thing that we're building here for the hex crawl playtesting, that is all down here in the 80s and 90s. We're going to continue diving into this content. So where are we at? Land types by color and all elevations. Yeah, before I start thinking about that stuff, let's catch up. What's up? First ever D&D character was a paladin. Okay. Paladin only spell was right on. That was a lot of people seem to rat. No, divine favor is good. Pre-gens are always fun. I spent a couple days, a month or two back drawing art. Yeah, right on, my guy. Oh, super fun. Right on. Excellent. Yeah, so yeah, we'll have 10 pre-generated characters, one for each guild, and it will be a mix. You know, we have artificers, barbarians, fighters, monks, paladins, rangers, rogues, and warlocks. So there's 8 different classes that are served in this book, and so those are the ones we're going to focus on. If you want to have access to divine magic or whatever, then obviously you take a paladin. The warlock will have normal warlock options, so you can play that out, and there will be you can mix in the martial power system as invocations. But people that are really interested, you can check out. I'll be using the Pacts and Patrons of Ravnica book, which converts all the guilds into otherworldly patrons. It's like if you wanted to go with the Golgari Swarm, then you would be a Golgari Warlock. And so here's the spells that you get access to as when that's your otherworldly patron. And it has these list of different abilities that you can have. So when we build Warlocks, we'll be using the Ravnica book and the mechanics that are inside of here to play along. And this has another 5 additional pack boons, and it has 30 additional invocations that you can choose from. So you can kick, again, this is a 33-page book. You can kick through all of the free preview here for you to be able to build out a character. So like maybe, I don't know, maybe like a Selesnya maybe we'll make a Warlock for Selesnya or something. I don't know. We're going to randomly figure out what each of these things are. But this is here for you guys to check out too if you're interested. Let's see. Let's clean up my docs here real quick. So different things that we need to do. I'm just going to start doing stuff. So we have the basic system where we're going through a hex crawl, right? You're going to travel through terrain towards your destination. And since it's a West March campaign, we're going to keep the map moving in a westward direction. The scenario here is that you're part of a transport ship that goes down in the wastelands. The wastelands are called Rubblebelts. There's 20-mile-long worms, kind of like sandworms from Dune, that occasionally rise to the surface, migrate to another part of the world, and then descend back into the bowels of the earth. And since they're 20 miles long, basically a mile wide, they just cut these massive swaths of destruction, just basically crushing through all the buildings and all the people that are there. And it's just, nothing is of consequence to these worms. They're mindless. They're just worms. They're migrating from one area to another, mating season, whatever it is that they got going on. But wherever they go, they destroy everything. So the planet's, it's like Earth. It's huge. It takes forever for the worms to come back around. And it also takes potentially hundreds of years to be able to repair the damage that are caused by these giant worms migrating. They can cut swaths of thousands of miles that break up the cities. Like it's what is it called? I don't remember the name of the word, but there's a word that means a city that covers the entirety of the planet. And that's what Ravnica is. Ravnica is so built up with city that it literally takes a mile of descent into the undercity, into the bowels of the city to get to the surface level of the world, where oceans are and where nature would be if it wasn't crushed under a mile worth of buildings. So these worms that dig through, they cut these massive swaths of rubble belts that break up one city area. Like here will be a city, like this used to all be one giant city block, and if like say if each of these blocks were to be like say 10 miles, right? If a herd of worms come through and break all this up, now you've got a segmented break in the city from here to here. And there's what? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 50 miles of bad news between this block of city and this block of city. If these are both thriving communities, then we'll see House of Zet and Azorius and Selesnya start coming in to reintegrate and rebuild all of this land. Instead of being rubble, Selesnya will come in and start farming the area so that it serves a purpose, while Azet comes in and starts reestablishing all the infrastructure of like mana power and sewage systems, and Rakdos will come in to clear out the rubble and start rebuilding community housing. And it could take, for that 50-mile swath, this 50-mile swath could be hundreds of miles long. So at some point, they could reintegrate all this stuff, but since there could be hundreds of worms that are surfacing at a time, this break in the community, this might not be 50 miles. This could be 5,000. This could be 5,000 or 500 miles, or however big. There is no technical size that there's no established size for the world. So it could be 10 miles, it could be 100 miles, it could be 1,000 miles per square. So these things, where we're at, we're assuming that we have about 1,000 miles of bad news between where you are and where you are going. And the story is that you are going to fly with a carrier from one community to the next, and at some point you get shot down, or something goes wrong that causes your ship to crash. And on that ship, there's a bunch of non-combatant as well as military type or combat ready characters, and your characters are the combat ready characters, and all the survivors that are non-com are the ones that you have to protect. The assumption is that you are heading east, but you got downed far closer to where you came from than where you were going, so it's logical that you would want to head west to get back home. Or if you're lucky, find something along the way that you could like activate as a beacon, maybe, or somehow get the attention of home to know that, hey, we got dropped, we're lost in the rubble belts, we need to get extracted, here's where we're at, and so they can come and rescue you. So you either have to find a way to communicate and then hunker down and defend your team until rescue comes, or continue crawling through the rubble belt, eventually finding your way home westward, but it could take months for you to get there. So the campaign is a survival quest to find something that'll get you out faster, but otherwise crawl your way out yourself. That's the basic premise. So I'm going to pause to catch up on the notes here, and then we'll keep talking. So, Euseminopolis, I think. Thank you. It's Eumenopolis, I believe, is the actual word. Yeah, but something like that. Thank you, Hornetico. So the idea here is that Magic the Gathering is themed around lands. When you are, let's see, land. Yeah, here we are, Ravnica lands. Search equals 0. Let's try that again. Ravnica land cards. So white, blue, black, red, green are represented generally by, yeah, there we go. Are represented by different types of lands. Like for instance, steam vents are a mix of red and blue. Blue for water and red for fire. Put them together, you get steam. So like this card is representing steam vents, which is infrastructure for your city to have power and heat and sewage waste removal. So this would be like in the rubble belt. If you come across steam vents, it would be like a central hub where you would be able to work on different steam pipes and stuff. And so if you find that in the Rubble Belt, you'd be able to delve into that space and potentially run around inside of these steam vents that are now inactive, leading you to maybe a water source, or finding like a defunct or inactive is that power station. So if your characters delve into these steam vent area, and you like say find this is that both blue and red magic. So is that oversees these things. We're not on page with them right now, but the basic land types by color. White, blue, black, red, green. White is plains, blue are islands, blue is swamp, black is swamp, red are mountains, and green is forest. So when you're playing a game of Magic the Gathering, you're putting down land cards each turn, and depending on what type of land it is, depends on what color it is, and you use the colors to cast different spells. So like, for example, here is Kinrith's Transformation. It's a green card. It's 2 mana total. It's an enchantment that modifies a creature. Enchant creature. When Kinrith's Transformation enters the battlefield, or when you use the card, it lets you draw another card, which is a game mechanic. Enchanted creatures lose all abilities and is a green elk creature with base power and toughness of 3 and 3. The power and toughness is basically like how much damage you deal and how many points of damage you can take. It's much simpler than D&D is in general. But if we were to like say go to our list here and let's go look at our spell casting, let's look at polymorph. Polymorph's a 4th level spell. Blue and red. Let's see. Let's look at maybe Alter Self, which is a 1st level spell. Blue and red. Interesting. So we're seeing Kinrith's card, which is a transformation into an elk. Maybe when we update the mechanics in 2024, we'll take a closer look at transformation magic and see if there's any consistency of seeing different polymorph effects that change people into green. If we see it, like enlarge reduce is a green effect, as well as red and blue, because we see a lot of different like giant growth and different spells like that lean into the green space. If we find enough cards that are polymorph by nature that indicate green as a theme, we could start adding all these spells as green spells. We can always get better, and the DM always has the freedom to add colors or remove colors, or you could learn, like this Kinrith spell could be a modified blue spell that the Kinrith, whoever that guy is, specifically has green mana, so he chose to research polymorph as a green magic spell instead of blue. So that could be where Kinrith's Transformation comes from. But like, what's another example? Heart Expedition. Enchantment, landfall. So this would be remove 3 quest counters from. This isn't a good example because it uses a lot of weird mechanics. Killer Instinct is blue and is red and green plus an additional 4 mana. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal cards from your library. If it's a creature card, you can summon that creature into play. It can attack immediately, and then it dies. So there you go. These are different things that you can do with mana. A lot of them don't translate over to D&D, but they create fun inspiration. So Killer Instinct would be you create a monster, it attacks, and then it disappears again. And it can be any creature, and you can do that every turn. So this enchantment affects the land or the environment that we're in. So if we had a Killer Instinct effect, like say, let's go over here and say, look at this, like this green tile here. If we had a Killer Instinct enchantment active inside of this tile, whenever your team enters this space, there would be enchantments that are flickering different creatures into existence for you to fight. You have to endure them, and then they disappear. So like that enchantment effect wouldn't necessarily be a combat encounter. It would be more of a hazard where creatures are flickering and disappearing because of the magics that are chaos in this area. You'd have creatures that are appearing, attacking you, and then disappearing again. You might be able to hold them off with an attack or an opportunity attack to repel them or to defend your team. But while that effect was active, you would be dealing with spontaneous monsters erupting from the ground or just dropping into existence from the clouds to attack you, and then you would have to the theme of this tile would be, we need to disable that magic so that this weird altar effect isn't happening anymore, so it's safe for us to take our caravan through this tile. Or you could decide that tile's bullshit, we're not going to go to that one, let's just go to this blue one instead and avoid that one. Or like, let's descend into this black square, this swamp space. This is a level ground, this is level ground, this is level ground, this is ascending as an incline, and this is descending as in decline. Here we have, this is your starting square, so you can either move into this square, you can move into any 3 of these squares, or you can move into this square. This is a flat-landed swamp, this is a flat-landed plain, this is an ascending blue space into the sky. So like there'll be like towers or like toppled skyscrapers that you would have to ascend to climb over, which will make them difficult terrain. This one is a level flat ground. It's red, but it has this letter C in it, which means that there's a random there's creatures that you're going to have to fight to get through. If there's no creatures in a space, then there are dungeons that you can delve into. So there'll either be topside hazards, creatures, and challenges. C is for challenge. So there's a challenge for you traversing this tile. There's no challenge in this tile, but it's ascending, so it's difficult terrain for you to maneuver through that space. So like this might not be the friendliest one for you to go into because it's going to be a hard climb the entire time. But if you chose this one, we know there's going to be a challenge in that space, and we can randomize what that challenge is. So what we're going to want to do is create custom challenges for each tile. Like the challenge for like a green-red space here, this killer instinct idea. If you're moving into a, like this is a red challenge space. There could be chaotic magic that creates this killer instinct effect. So we can have hazards, which are these enchantment effects that affect the tile in general. There could be a list of creatures that will come and try to attack your caravan if you don't resolve them. And there could be like there'd be hazards, creatures, and then like traps, which could be like mana traps, like things that you have to overcome by spending mana, so you have less resources while you're traversing that space. Or it could be like spring blade traps or something like that. But working at a large scale here. So we're talking about your team traversing this tile to move to the next tile, and you're forever moving westward. So we'll probably keep the scope of limit to these 3 general. You can see here we have your starting tile, and then you have white, blue, and red tiles, and then we randomly generate the next row of tiles, next row of tiles. So the idea would be to gamify it, limit our scope to these 3 tiles. Each one of these squares is 30 miles. So when we zoom in, each one of these squares is that's a 10-mile square. The way that we have it calibrated right now is for you to be able to explore a tile, secure it so it's safe, and to move your caravan into this space. That takes 5 hours. If it's ascending or descending, that's difficult terrain. It would then take 10 hours instead of 5 to secure and traverse that area. You have 15 hours of day of movement, and you have 9 hours of downtime. That's just the way that we're calibrating the game for a 24-hour block of time. So I could move, like say in 5 hours, I could move from this square. I can move from start into this square, resolve that square, move the caravan into that square, and then choose any one of these adjacent squares to then traverse into. If I want to move laterally and ascend this blue square into the heights, I could take 10 hours to go into that space, secure it, and then move my caravan into it. The advantage of moving into an elevated space is that I'd be able to see what the, like say the next block of tiles would be, because I'm moving to an elevation that's high enough that I can see what's coming up for us to then be able to plan, well, if we have a black square over here, a red square here, and say a white square here, we could choose which one do we want to mess with more. Do we want to deal with swamps? Do we want to deal with mountains and potential like lava or fire fields? Or do we want to deal with like open plains that could potentially have dangerous creatures in it? So when we take a look at it, we won't necessarily know if there's hazards or threats that we're going to have to deal with. We'll just have a general idea of what type of land are we moving into. So when you're choosing your character types, if you're going to play, like, say, an Azorius character that's aligned to, like, say, white and blue magic, we want to give you advantages for being in a tile that corresponds with your colors. So if you're playing an Azorius character that has white and blue magic, the starting square moving into white or blue, we want to make that advantageous for your Azorius character to be in that space. And right now, the way that we're thinking about resolving that is that if you are in a tile of a, if the tile you're in is devoted to the same colors of mana your character has, you can at any time spend a point of that color mana, and that you could then give your team an inspiration. They could re-roll a d20, or they could re-roll, like, say, a d6 and add that to the results of any d20 that they throw. During combat, it would require a reaction for you to do that. Out of combat, you can just do it ad hoc. You can do it over and over and over again until you run out of mana, or during a round of combat, normally you only have one reaction per round. So you could always use your mana to juice up somebody else. So if I'm playing a Rakdos character that's black-red, and you're playing an Azorius character that's white-blue, while we're traversing a white or blue tile, your Azorius character can freely give me mana to re-roll dice rolls. So that you can then, if we have like a Rakdos character, like if our team is nothing but Rakdos and Azorius, right? We don't have anybody that's devoted to green. While we're in the green tile, we're going to be we have to be self-sufficient with our own mana. We can't share mana. But while we're inside of a tile that our characters can use, we can freely float mana between each other to be able to juice up each other's stuff. So we can strategize. When we start the session, you decide what kind of a character you're playing. If you come to the table with a Dimir Rogue, you're going to be stuck with blue and black mana for the course of the playtest. If your character dies, you can grab one of the pre-generated characters and, hey, look at that, we're in a green tile right now. I think I'll pick up this Selesnya character that has white and blue, has white and green magic available to them. I'm just going to start playing that character, and until I get my feet behind what I want that character to be able to do, I can just dump my mana into your character so I can become a support character to give more mana to the rest of the team. That's a fun way for us to be able to cheat the system and make the hex crawl interesting, because the threats and challenges you're going to face are going to be colored by theme, and then your character's color decisions will matter because you'll have more resources available for you to help your team overall, depending on what color you're in and what colors you have, if that makes sense. So that's the crash course of what we have going on here. And right now, something I've been thinking about, in the Spelljammer book that we've been illustrating Monday through Fridays in the mornings, the Spelljammer book is built around scale. Like anywhere from 100 million miles per day all the way down to 5 feet. I'm actually going to be putting out a video on Sunday about combat scaling. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely like and subscribe and keep an eye out for that video release. But the way that we have this built is that each of these squares inside of it, you have the tile, and the tile's 30 miles. And inside of that tile, each square is 10 miles. So if we're looking at, I'm going to conceal all that stuff real quick, just to go on a tear here real quick about scale. So if a tile is 10 miles, if I were to zoom in on that tile, 10 miles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is a 10 by 10 grid, and each one of these squares is 1 mile. So your character can normally traverse 3 miles per hour, right? So for you to get from one end of a square to and then to move into another, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then that'd be first mile, second mile, third mile, fourth mile. Yeah, if you're in this tile here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10 will get you into the next tile, which is again expressed here with each of these. So I don't think it's necessary for us to grind down scaling like this, but you have 1 mile, and then you can take this 1 mile square here, and you can drill down with that one into a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This becomes a 10 by 10 grid. And each one of these is 500 feet. So you've got 10 miles, and then you've got 1 mile, and then you grind all these down, and this is 500 feet. And you can then grind this down further. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This 10 by 10 space then becomes 50-foot squares. And then as you traverse through that space, you can get down here, expand on this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 by 10. Each one of these squares is 5 feet. And this is your normal dungeon scale of combat. So we build a quick little dungeon thing here. There you go. So you got 1 room, 2 rooms, 3 rooms, and then entrance into the dungeon. This becomes a little tight. Oh, maybe we'll have like another room over here. This is a tight little 5-room dungeon that fits inside of a 50-foot square. This 50-foot square is here. This could be part of a larger dungeon complex at the 50-foot scale. And then here's the entrance to the dungeon. That is all zoomed into this square here. So this is a 50-foot, so like this is 150 feet by 200 feet, and it goes into 150 feet by 200 feet. This little corner over here is what we see this room here. So at the 10-mile scale, maybe we're sitting inside of like this blue elevation, right? This is a toppled skyscraper that got knocked over by a worm going by. So it's in rubbles currently, but it's still an ascending structure. So instead of climbing on the outside of the building across the tile, you could delve into that building to look for stuff. So at the 10-mile scale, this is the tower structure that maybe you're ascending through. So like you jump on here, maybe it has a footprint like this. Maybe this is your toppled tower structure. And this is like, if we were to look at this like sidelong, here's your, like this might be the ruined skyscraper, right? That got knocked down. This is 1 mile each. So this skyscraper is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a 5-mile tall structure that's at a severe lean, and there could be countless layers inside of this structure that could lead to smaller and smaller footprints. So inside of this space here, like say in this space here, you zoom in and here's your structure, and it's got a floor plan here at the 500-foot scale. It's like maybe like this is a this is a courtyard, and it leads to different office complexes that are here, and then like maybe there's an elevator here and here that would lead up to other levels of the tower, but it's at a 45-degree angle, so you could use this tunnel to go from level to level. And so let's say you dive into this office space here. So zooming into that office space, we're looking at, here's your elevator that would lead up, and it like opens up into the elevator into this room here and here. and there could be like, this could be like an Azorius, it's blue, so like maybe this is a Simic hospital at one point. So if we dive into this space here, we might find medical supplies like healing potions, for instance, or like a chamber that allows you to spend 10 minutes and it equals a restoration spell, for instance. But if you come over here, this area here could be nothing but like data files and records that if you pump mana into it, if you push blue or green mana into this data, probably blue because of information. So if you dump blue mana into this, you could start pulling files on maybe like what it is that they were researching here. And maybe it turns out that this was a Krasis development center. Krasis are artificial beings, insects or reptilian or avian or fish or somewhere blending in between. So like maybe this was a Krasis data center, and maybe your information exposes that like there was a colony of burrowing insects that were being developed here, and when the Rubblebelt fell, we don't have any information about them anymore. It's like, well, this place probably had insects of some sort. So when we go back out and we're looking at the larger scale here again, now that you know that, when we dive into this space, here is a here's a tile, right? This blue one over here, and there's a blue over here, there's a white over here, but maybe in the next 2 or 3 tiles or hex or squares that we move into, whenever we run into blue or green stuff, they could be maybe insects in nature. They were creatures that escaped this Krasis project, and now all the creatures that you're going to run across in the blue area, since it's all RNG anyway, these could be Krasis creatures that were escaped and built their own colonies and are now thriving in the Rubblebelt with nobody keeping check of them. But now when your team is traversing the Rubblebelt, whenever you run across these tiles, we have a theme of Krasis insect creatures that can burrow. So wherever you are inside the hex, if you don't secure that area first, your caravan could get attacked by, like, say, Umberhulks, which are burrowing insect creatures that were developed as Krasis in the Rubblebelt. You're now dealing with maybe Rimmeraz, Chol, and Umberhulk could be the creatures that are now in the vicinity that you have to fuck around with. And maybe there's like a tribe of there's like a ghoul clan of lizard folk that are aware of these Krasis and know that they're dangerous. So you're not running across humanoid tribes in the area because they keep getting eaten by Umberhulks. They know to keep clear, but you crashed into this space. You don't know any better. So if you want to resolve Krasis in the area, you might have to go find their nest where they're growing. That could be like a CR 8 or 9 challenge for you to go into that Krasis nest and kill off its queen so it doesn't brood any more Krasis from then on forward. That'll help clear out the threat so there's less hostility in the area as you continue to traverse it. So these are kind of random RNG things or different things that we can develop. So as we keep going through and developing this thing, we'll need to take Magic the Gathering cards and take these different enchantment aura effects to create potential hazards and trap conditions that the team would have to deal with. And we can also continue diving through here and find different types of creatures that we would then be able to set up as challenges and then translate those into D&D mechanics. So I think the book itself here, let's look at Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. Let's see, I think there's a chapter on creatures. Coins, guilds, magic items, creatures by guild. There we go. So we can dive in here and look at different creature types. Azorius creatures. Homunculus, owls, giant owls, soldiers, war horses, giant eagles, griffins, veteran knights, precognition mages, Feldadar is a celestial creature. Archons, Andorra Sphinx, Asperia, Law Mages. Probably going to want to like this is the Rubblebelt, so there's not going to be a lot of sentient creatures that are still sticking around here unless they're undead. undead would haunt the ruins, and spirits can be both black and white energy. So we could find Azorius, like felled Azorius spirit guardians that are designed to keep incorporeal creatures out of data centers and prison systems, for instance. Like there could be buried prisons in here that all the incarcerated creatures that died, maybe they all become revenants or wights, or they drown. They become drowned assassins, for instance. So we could populate an area with those. So there are some random lists here of different creature types that exist. We can continue to delve into and find a wider variety of creatures using the cards for us to flesh out what these are. I don't know if that's something we may do that on stream here in the next couple weeks, but right now we're just hammering out ideas here and walking through and explaining how these different systems work and like how I'm thinking about them. So I think it's interesting that we can delve down from 10 mile squares all the way down through these cascading scales of magnitude down to the 5-foot dungeon. But I don't think, I think in general that's not practical, but it's useful to know this stuff exists from a theater of the mind perspective. We don't have to build a map for all these things, but it does allow us to, on the fly, quickly be able to organize stuff like this. Like you could have this 5-mile skyscraper, and surely over the course of traversing the tile, if you're ascending it, you're going to find different entry points along the way that you could delve into that we could create random dungeons with, right? So we probably want to have some quick build 5-room dungeons that can fit inside of a reasonable, say, 100-foot space. So as your characters delve into these spaces looking for stuff, we can have pre-built dungeons that we can, since I'm going to be using Roll20 for this, for the playtesting, it'd be easy for us just to flip screens between different tile configurations, give it a color theme, and then each of the 5 rooms we can assign threats. So the tiles that we have currently, again, we have a system generator inside here to, let's go back to it. We have the elevation of like how high and low, and the elevation helps determine what type of threats are going to be inside of each area. So I don't think we've actually developed, like we're looking at different type of lands at the different elevations. Like an elevated blue tile could be an Azorius Civic Center. It could be skyways, which are towers that have arches and like bridges that connect between the two of them. Obviously, a lot of these would be toppled, so that'd be difficult terrain to traverse. But like an elevated blue community could be, and then Risto, like it's at the the Jetsons have like those communities on top of pillars. If you've seen that cartoon, the Hanna-Barbera cartoon from the 60s and 70s, it has these thin pillars, and there's these massive communities that sit on top of them. An aristocratic island community in Ravnica would be similar in theme, that you would have this, but if a Rubblebelt gets not, like the tower would be toppled over, so you'd have this big disc on its sides, so it becomes like this like instead of being an easy to traverse floor by floor, it's toppled over its sides, so it becomes all these vertical shafts that you would have to traverse through as one option, or at a 45-degree angle to make it difficult surface to traverse, for instance. But these are the different types of lands. Like an elevated white surface could be Selesnya's white and green. So if you ran across a Selesnya city tree, there could be a 500-foot tall tree that has all these treehouse communities in it, but it's been abandoned by society as a whole. So now maybe it's overrun with like treants and blights, for instance. Or there could be a population of Gruul Sky Raiders that are barbarians and rangers that have an affinity with giant owls. So now maybe they've taken over the city, and they're using that as a perch for them to be able to hunt all the adjacent tiles in the region. So they could have, like, say, a 30 or 60 mile hunting ground. So anytime you're dealing with anytime you're in elevated space, there's a chance of you running across griffins and like owl riders and drakes, stuff like that. So you can have different types of threats at different elevations depending on where your team is at But the higher elevation your team gets, the further you can see ahead, so you can plot your movement to be able to chart a course for your caravan to safely traverse through. While you're up in there, maybe there's interesting resources. Maybe you can become an ally of that Gruul, those Gruul Outriders, and they could help you get from one tile to another for a cost. They may have a quest for you. It's like, yeah, we'd love to go develop that area over there, but there's all these Krasis that dig up and kill us. If you can clear out the Krasis net in this tile over here, like over here, for instance, if you clear out the Krasis in this tile, we'll help. We can take you to the next territory, but we don't want to go further because there's an opposing Gruul clan in 2 tiles over. So we can take you ahead to check that stuff out, but we don't have the resources to move your entire caravan, but we can help you scout ahead. Like, so we can create little one-shot episodes that helps you establish resources or clear out threats, so that future teams that come through in the West March, they'll have that path cleared out because that's what another team did for us. So we want to create all these different little interesting challenges and threats to resolve. So there's still an episodic feel to the West March, but short enough that we can grind through them quickly. So let's scroll down here and start thinking about threats. Dungeon threats, overland challenges. So we're going to have creatures. We're going to have hazards. And we're going to have, let's call them enchantments. Enchantments generally need mana. Require ability. What is it? Skill challenges. Require combat. So these will be our 3 pillars that we work inside of. To me, in my philosophies, the social pillar is actually exploration or combat. When you're talking to somebody, you're either trying to get information from them or you're trying to craft their choices through intimidation or influence or deception. So technically, social engagement is an exploration, is an exploration challenge. It's the same as trying to traverse a lava field or trying to vine swing from one tree to another to avoid the ground because maybe the ground is lava, for instance. Like, those are hazards that you would have to deal with, and you're using skills to traverse the space. Conversations with creatures and sentient things is you traversing the mind space of the conversation that you're involved in. Similarly, if you're competing against each other or in an argument, that's a pseudo combat challenge. We don't have robust mechanics for social combat yet, but it's on the way. So we can have, and then enchantments are, like we were talking about, like the killer instinct that flickered things in and out of existence that are attacking you. That would need you to invest mana to overcome that threat. So while you're, the way that we're structuring the flow of the game is each tile. Again, these are 30-mile tiles, and each square inside that tile is 10 miles. Each square requires 5 miles for you to explore, overcome any threats, take a short rest, and move your caravan into that tile. So you have 15 hours per day, and as long as you're on even ground, 5 hours to move through each square, whether there's a challenge or not. The amount of time it takes for you to be thorough, that there's no threats in this square, we can move forward, fantastic. If there are threats in the area, then we're going to have to resolve that challenge, and we won't have a chance to take a rest until we do. And then during that rest, that's when we move the caravan forward. We go back, we grab our caravan, and we move it forward. And while the caravan is moving forward, that's when the scouts take their short rest. That then shifts us into the protection phase of the caravan. If you don't secure the area and you advance your your caravan into that square, that caravan is at a high risk of being attacked as a random encounter. So you're either taking time to scout ahead and resolve threats, or you're moving your caravan forward and risking that you're going to encounter threats. And at some point, you're going to have to take a long rest. When you take a long rest, it's assumed that's going to be with the caravan where you have protection. So during that protection phase, your characters are then being basically a tower defense for the caravan. So we'll have to build a caravan tile that your team occupies, and then all the hostility is surrounding the tile for you to defend it from being destroyed. That's the idea of it. So diving further into that space, these are the challenges that we are defining. Combat negotiation, skill challenges to resolve, and a skill challenge is like 4 successes before 3 failures, for example. And then the team contributes to that skill, and you can spend mana to increase your ability to succeed challenge checks. Like, for example, if we get into exploits modify die rolls. For example, commanding presence. When making an ability check that uses the intimidate, performance, or persuasion skill, roll 1 power die per mana channeled, adding the highest roll to your result. So if you were, we're going to start at 3rd level. So 3rd level characters, they can only channel 1 mana, and the mana, when they do, if they're spending on an ability check, they can add a d6 to their die roll. Kind of like an inspiration die from a bard, right? Not as good as a bard over time, because we're going to cap at d10s, while bards go up to d12s over time. So a bard will eventually pull ahead and be better for inspiration and skills and saving throws and attacks and ability checks than what a martial character is, but these are things that you can do for yourself. So you can kit your character out to have some exploits, so that, and again, you can take a short rest. So if you're moving into the next tile, when you're scouting ahead, I think what we need to do is make sure that if I spend, like, say 5 hours inside this tile here, if I'm going to move ahead, part of that process of exploring ahead will let us know, is there, like, of the squares that are adjacent to us, which one of them have challenges that we're going to have to overcome. And so we know there's going to be a challenge. I'm thinking that's the fair way of doing it, because when you take a short rest, you can swap out one of the powers that you know. So if you know you're going into, like, say, if we're going to go into this square and we know there's a challenge in that square, we'll be able to know, is it an enchantment, is it a hazard, or is it a creature that you're going to have to deal with, so that you'll know that you want to spec into, like, an exploit that's going to give you advantages on saving, on ability checks, or it's going to be like an enchantment effect, so you're going to want to spec into something that's going to give you bonuses to your saving throw, or it's going to be a creature threat, a combat threat, so you're going to want to spec into, like, another strike, or maybe a reaction or a maneuver that's going to allow you to target creatures, so you can use your mana pool that way. So I'm thinking that we're going to have to procedurally, as we go through the adventure, when you finish securing a tile, you'll have rudimentary basic information about the tiles that surround you, so you'll know which way you want to steer your ship, depending on, or lead your caravan, depending on what threats it is that you're anticipating running across. If there are no threats in that tile, like, these have C's on them, so we know that there's obvious upfront challenges that your characters can observe. If there are no obvious threats in the surrounding tiles that you're moving into, all these tiles will have dungeons. So you know that if there's no surface level threat, that's probably because there is a dungeon threat that's keeping the surface of the tile free from, like, the reason why there's creatures not roaming around causing you challenges up front is because there's something underneath the surface or inside of the structures that will come out at night and will and overtake the area, that are the apex predator of that tile. It's just not obvious to you what they are. So when you go into that tile, you know you're either going to have to get out of that tile before the day ends, or go down into, find its lair and defeat that mini boss, so that when you get to a long rest, it won't surface and attack you. You either deal with it on your own during the day, or you deal with it potentially more dangerous threat at night while you're defending your caravan. So the scouts are constantly moving out to go resolve threats. That's the general format that we're trying to work with. So yeah, right on. Yeah, so that's some of the ideas that we're playing with here. And again, I'm using this stream space here with you guys to start hammering out what these ideas are. So a lot of these things I haven't really, like, I've only kind of thought about, but I haven't really locked down. So tile procedure 5, and if it's elevated or descending, unless you have something that allows you to traverse that space easily, like if you're on the back of owls, obviously you could traverse an elevated space unhindered. It's easy, but you're going to attract aerial foes, and that could potentially get your character killed. That's why we need all the pre-generated characters, because if I decide to one-shot you with something because you're overstepping your threat range and you're not respecting what challenges are, you just think you can fly over land a long way, well, you're going to get slapped down by aerial shit. And if they knock you off of your mount or disrupt your concentration, you will fall from the sky. So, cheers. Let's see, tile procedures, 5 miles, 5 or 10 hours per tile. Let's see, traverse. So what you get to do is scout, resolve challenges, advance caravan, move caravan, short rest. So with 15 hours a day and 5 or 10 hours, so we're going to allow every 5 hours of gameplay to be a short rest. So if we're breaking the day up in 24 hours, we're taking a 9-hour long rest. You've got 15 hours a day. You're starting your day, you go 5 hours, you take a short rest. You go another 5 hours, that's 10, you take a short rest. At the end of that other 5 hours, that third 5-hour block, you don't take a short rest, you take a long rest. So we're going to maintain the tempo that D&D was designed to have. 2 short rests and a long rest. 2 short rests and a long rest. 2 short rests and a long rest. 5-hour block, 5-hour block, 5-hour block, long rest. 5-hour block, short rest. 5-hour block, short rest. 5-hour block, long rest. Pacing out our tempo that way, which means that each tile that we go into is going to need to have a tempo. So D&D assumes 8 challenges per long rest. That equals 2 to 3 challenges per 5-hour block. If you're ascending, you're moving at half the rate, which means you're going to have 2 potential challenges in that ascending space or descending space, because it takes longer for it. The reason, even if your character is able, like say if you take a ranger and your ranger chooses underground tunnels and dungeons as their favored ground, so that they are not slowed while traversing that terrain. That doesn't do anything for the caravan of non-combatant character NPCs. They have all this stuff that they have to move. They are going to be slowed by the terrain, even if your characters aren't. So your character is going to be high mobile for scouting, and you may potentially be able to traverse land more quickly. But once that caravan gets involved, it's going to eat up shitloads of time. So no matter what your characters are able to do, ascending and descending squares are always going to be difficult terrain for the challenge. So if you're going into these ascending to descending spaces, it's going to eat 10 hours of your day. So you would want to, if you want to make a lot of distance, like if you're starting in the square here, here's one square, here's one square, here's one square, 1, 2, 3. If I resolve the challenge here, and I remove the apex predator from their dungeon lair here, and I remove the apex predator from their dungeon lair here. Over the course, I can take a short rest here after I resolve the challenges. I can take a short rest here after resolving the mini boss lair, and then here I can take a long rest after resolving the apex predator in this square. And if I move myself through not resolving these challenges, I'm going to have to deal with them during the long rest. So every threat I don't resolve while traveling through, it's still going to eat up my entire day moving the caravan through. But if I either fail and retreat from a challenge, get my characters killed and refresh with new pre-generated characters from the guard supply in the caravan, or just simply skip it and don't search, then I will potentially have a random encounter from one of whichever squares I don't resolve. Those become the pile of potential threats, or even combination of threats that we'll have to deal with that during that long rest. So instead of getting an uninterrupted long rest, the long rest will have at least one challenge that you'll have to deal with a short rest, a short rest recovery. And then the long rest after you defeat the challenge, or if you've already resolved all your challenges and have an uninterrupted long rest, you'll be able to get through that day. We could also have in the circumstances where, like, if I'm in one square here, I move into this square, that's 5 hours. I move into this square, that's 5 hours. And then I could move into this descending square. I'll only have 5 hours left in my day, which means that I will not have the time to completely secure this environment. So I can either delve into it, occupy that space, and deal with whatever we didn't deal with during our long rest and still have our long rest. And then we'll just skip forward. Since you're not actually resolving the hex, I'll tell you what the surrounding hexes in the area are, if there's any obvious threats that are in those areas, and then we move to long rest. And that's when you're going to have the defender portion. We'll pull out our caravan defense map, and we'll put creatures and hazards and challenges on that board to threaten your caravan. If you're successful in fighting free of that caravan, then your caravan survives, and then you have another day. If the caravan is defeated and everyone and a TPK happens and everyone is lost, then the caravan is captured. And then you'll have a new team of either replacement characters or the pre-generated characters that we have. Your team is a scouting team, but your team is not necessarily the only scouting team that's out there. So if your team fails the defense mission and you lose your caravan, the caravan is still alive. They're just captured to either be enslaved or eaten or whatever. And now you have another one of the NPC scouting teams can then follow up and attempt to free your caravan. So your default fail state is get a new team and go rescue your caravan. And once they're rescued, you continue moving forward with your caravan to a new tile. If your rescue team fails, there's no limit to how many scouting teams could potentially be out there, because the number of creatures that are in the caravan is specifically ambiguous, so that you can always pull. NPCs can become protectors, or guards can become guard characters. Guard characters can become scouts. Your team is scouting forward to find a way forward. Protectors are overseeing and keeping the caravan safe while they're at. And then there could be other scouts that are trailing the caravan to make sure that you aren't snuck up on. So that snuck up on scout protector space is where your nighttime long rest challenges come from. And if your caravan is defeated, those trailing scouts are the ones that are going to come in and rescue the caravan. Once the caravan is rescued, you can either keep using your rescue scouts as your current characters and then switch them to being scouts, and new protectors will become the fallback scouts, or the backup teams. I don't have a good word for them yet, but the backup scouts that you could then transition to if you need to. These backup scouts also can be portraying other teams of players that come into the game during the Westmarch. Since there's episodic adventuring, you're just using a different scout. There you go. So you can mix and match because they're always coming back during the long rest to reconnect with the caravan. You could then mix up the team and send out other teams. Hey, we got some black squares coming up. Why don't you Golgari, Orzhov, and Rakdos warriors, why don't you go attack that space and try to secure that black tile so that we can move our caravan into that space. Since you're all black mana characters, you'll be able to float your mana between each other and be able to lean into and help each other as a team more effectively. There's a blue square beyond that. Maybe we need some Dimir, some Azorius in there. You won't always be effective in the black tile, but once we move into the blue tile, you'll become much more effective when we need you there. So you want to break up what your colors are to be able to deal with whatever you're scouting ahead into so that you have freedom of mana to be able to float those things between each other. So that's the idea. Yeah, I've still got 20 some odd minutes. So let's keep poking at this a little bit just to start laying out ideas. So it equals 2 to 3 challenges per hour. Okay, so if there's supposed to be 8 challenges per day, and each square is going to have, say, yeah, it's going to have 2 or 3 tiles per 5-hour block. That should actually be per tile / 5 hours. So that's going to give us a cadence of, I guess we'd have 2, 2, and 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. You have, so flat equals 2, elevation equals 3 over the course of 10 hours. And then because you can have one combat during long rest and not have your long rest interrupted. So if we hit you with one challenge, that challenge can have 2 to 3 two or three accumulated threats. So you could have like double CR. We'll have it'll be like a defense. You'll have your, well, like circle the wagons, as it were, and have a defensive structure. And then dungeons. Dungeons have 3 to 6 rooms, so that'd be a 1d4 plus 2 rooms, and then 1 threat per 3 rooms per 2. So it'll either be 2 or, round down. So when we build a dungeon, I guess we got to build some dungeons. So let's build some dungeons. That's what we're doing now. I could use a random dungeon generator off of God knows how many websites, but I just want to kind of suss this shit out myself and just think about it a bit, right? So if I were to build this out into a toolkit that I would sell, I'd want to have a lot of different types of tiles. Let's first build out our space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to stay in this 10 by 10 space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because I think it's fun. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Bam. then here, and then here. This will be our entrance. But if I'm not using, if I'm going generic, I could just go with just boxes for now. It's like I could build caverns and all sorts of just fascinating tile types, like that steam vent room. I could create a dungeon with all sorts of like interesting little colored steam vents and sewer pipes and stuff like that. But if I'm just going generic, I can just create squares. So we have 1d4 plus 2. So there's going to be a minimum of 3 rooms per dungeon. So let's do this. Here's one room. So let's think about types of hazards. Let's go with combat focused game, skill focused game, less about the mana, but we're keeping it alphabetical. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We could use a D8 instead if we wanted to, I guess. I've been throwing D6 around almost the entire build, so I kind of want to stay in that space. Challenges, dungeons, top procedure. Holy shit, this project. In case you don't know who I am and what I do is I create systems. I'm really good at building mechanical systems for 5th edition. Whether they're like the Color Mana system, which redefines spellcasting, the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book that we've been streaming in the mornings, which redefines scale and character roles in campaign settings in general, and like the Theurgy ability check casting redefines skill challenges for spellcasting. The Nature's Ally is a book that redefines subclasses, in that they're like strict classing, which is subtypes that are independent from a specific class that can be taken by multiple classes. Almost all the stuff I don't do like feats or spells or monsters. I build systems to play a game differently, to spin 5e into the kind of game mechanics that can better represent a style of play. And so there'll be creatures and feats and spells and class options that naturally arise from these different systems that are developed. But I don't just build like, here's a bunch of Dimir monsters. Like, I could do that. That's not where my passion is at. So, enchantments by creature, enchantment by color, hazards by color. So what we can do here is, since we're in this float space, thinking things through. Challenges. Man, there's up, flat, and down. There's 3 elevations, and those elevations could also modify colors. But I think for now, enchantment effects are things that have to be disabled, or like dispelled or countered one way or another. So I'm thinking we can spend some time here diving back into these enchantment effects and see what cool shit is out here. There's 666 enchantments that are specifically focused on green. Jeebus, that's insane. Let's go with let's build this differently. Let's go with Ravnica enchantment cards. Cindervines. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, Cindervines deal 1 damage to that player. Sacrifice Cindervines, destroy target artifact or enchantment. 2 damage to that permanent. Interesting. Oh boy, this is gonna get thick. Let's see. What would Cinder? So now we have to make up effects for each of these fucking things. So, Cindervines. What does Cindervines do? Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, Cindervines deals 1 damage to that player. Cindervines equals fire damage. What would it be? We are almost out of time for the day. So whenever you channel a power or cast a spell, you'll take, at this level, it would be a d6. You take d6 damage every time you try to channel a power. Take one power die of damage whenever you channel one power die per mana of damage whenever you channel a power or cast spell. So if you're doing nothing but cantrips, 0 cost mana effects, it wouldn't cause damage. Anytime you actually spend mana, it'll deal 1 power die of damage per mana. So during a Cindervine threat, your characters are going to be reduced down to cantrip activities only. Or you're going to be healing yourself a lot because you're going to be taking damage. And at 3rd level, you don't have a shitload of hit points, so that's a threat. And anytime, let's see, oh, that's right. Based on severity. So let's go look at severity tables real quick. Let's peel up Knights and Tricksters. And take a look at that real quick. Oh no, this is the wrong book to use. Let's go. Let's go Elemental Key instead. I'm looking for attrition effects. Okay, frequency of attrition. So when you travel through hostile terrain or endure a hostile condition that causes attrition, make an ability concentration. God, that's trimmed. I need to fix that. Concentration saving throw. Oh, good. It's just an artifact. Make an ability concentration saving throw at the frequency of the severity listed below. The DC of the saving throw is equal to 10 plus total key tapped. If the saving throw fails, concentration is disrupted. So if it's a mild effect, mild, moderate, strong, severe, extreme, and supernatural. These are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 degrees of suffering that your character has to endure. So let's go with don't think I just want to leave it a straight D6. I think I want to push up the severities. Mild, say 1 to 3, 4 and 5. No, wait. 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5. 20, 18, 19. $18, 19, 15, 16, 17, 3, 4, 5. 6 to 14. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 15, 16, 17. That's 3. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's 7. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, yeah, 7, 4, 5, 6, 7. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, 5, 6, 15, 16, 17, yeah, that's a decent curve. I dig that. That's great. So we establish make a concentration check based on severity, or sustained effects are dispelled. So if we have, let's just roll a d20. I rolled an 18. So in this circumstance, when I'm in this tile, when I'm in this red tile, if I'm in this red tile and we pull a challenge, and that challenge is an enchantment threat, and then we rolled, and we're in red, and we rolled a 1, then it's Cinder Vines, and we know that Cinder Vines, therefore, deal 1 power of d6 damage every time you spend mana. Each point of mana you spend is d6 damage. And the frequency is severe. So every minute that we exist inside this space, we have to make a concentration effect, or the sustained effect is dispelled. Which means that the 5 hours that we're in there, we're gonna have to make 300 checks. You are going to lose your sustained effect. So if you try to sustain something, you have to fire it up with spending a point of mana. It's gonna damage you, and then you're immediately going to have to make a concentration check to prevent from just losing it right away. So during that challenge, inside that tile or that region, you're going to have to do it without sustained effects. You're going to have to do it with just instant effects and strikes and whatever. But you will not, if you try to sustain something, it's going to damage you, and it's going to probably get shut off. unless you can continue making saves. But every time you, like, say, use an exploit to boost your mana, it's going to damage you. So, cheers. That's one effect. Let's see what other cool shit's out for us to explore inside of here. Expose the daylight. Ooh, neat. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Scry 1. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Final payment. Yeah, nah. Mortify. Destroy target creature or enchantment. Uh-oh. All right, well, that's 11:30. That's my time for today. So, anyone that's checking this out, if you're interested, you can jump onto the Discords with me. I think I have. Do I have a link to my Discord up top? I do. No, I don't. Let's go to Discord here. Let's grab this. Actually, let's float. I think we have one in here. What's all this bullshit? Not so much. Hold on. Let's try it this way. There we go. Fill current creations. Here we are. Now anyone can jump into my Discord. There you go. We now have a link to Discord on the playtest. You can find the playtest content again on my Patreon. Let's go there real quick and update this link. Is it the share button? Sure is. Copy link. Can I not do all that shit? Let's try insert link. There, let's do that. Hey, success. There we go. All right, guys. We're looking good. Okay, cool. So if this stuff is cool to you, I certainly wouldn't mind help in fleshing out enchantments, creature types, and hazards that we can insert into here. That can be part of the conversation that we have on my Discord under the Martial Powers playtest content. If this stuff is interesting to you, you can reach out to me through Discord here, obviously. You can drop notes down in the comments down below. I am also on the Ravnica DM Reddit. You're welcome to jump in there, but we're going to have to flesh out all this crap to make it make sense. It doesn't have to be a full 20 list. It could just be maybe like a curated list of like 4 each, maybe would be more sensible. Anyway, we're building tools here. So we're going to pick up on this next week and continue building. Maybe we'll do it during the week as well. But when we come back on Monday at lunchtime, we're going to build a Dimir blue-black themed rogue at 3rd level to be a pre-generated ad hoc character that anyone can just opt into using if their character gets killed or if you didn't come to the table with a pre-built character. So that's where we're at today, guys. I'm out of here for now. I'm going to make a recording, and we'll have a video posted for Spelljammer content tomorrow, and then on Monday morning. It's the new year. It's the 1st. It's a holiday. I don't necessarily know what my day is going to look like on the 1st. I think at some point I'm going to do some streaming. Normally I do Spelljammer in the morning, Martial Powers at lunch on Monday, and then in the evening I do Eberron. I honestly don't know if that's going to be a normal day, but we'll resume normal activities on Tuesdays, and moving forward from there, we may or may not be doing stuff on Monday. I don't know what my day is looking like yet. So stay tuned, like, subscribe, bell icon, blah-de-blah. I'll see you guys on the other side. Thanks a lot for hanging out. Cheers.